He thought I was just another quiet assistant who wouldn't dare challenge him. But when I found out my boss, the man I trusted and admired, was cheating on me with not one but two women in the office, including my best friend, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I plotted the most delicious revenge he never saw coming. Let's just say the company's golden boy left his corner office with his head down and his secrets in flames. It's a story that starts with a dream. The kind of dream where you walk into a shiny office building, wearing your best suit, knowing you've worked hard to get here. That was me. My name's Emily and I was the assistant to Ryan Carter, the CEO of a booming tech startup. He was charming, ambitious, and well, let's be honest, everyone loved him. I admired him too. I mean, who wouldn't? He took me under his wing when I first joined the company, gave me responsibilities, and even made me feel like I was more than just his assistant. I had no idea he was hiding a dark secret, one that would destroy everything we built, and not just mine but everyone's. But things took a turn. I started noticing the late nights, the secretive calls, the odd glances exchanged between Ryan and my best friend Jessica. I couldn't put my finger on it, until I saw them together in his office. Her lips on his. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I found out she wasn't the only one. I knew I could cry. I could quit. I could walk away from the humiliation. But that's not what I did. No. I stayed, and I waited. I wasn't going to let him think he could get away with this. Not when I had everything I needed to ruin him and take back my power. In a game of lies, betrayal, and deceit, the only question left was, how far would I go to make sure he paid for what he did? Before everything fell apart, my life was good. In fact, it was better than good. I had a job at Carter Technologies that people only dreamed of, working my way up in a fast-growing company. I was proud of the work I did, of the difference I was making. I was more than just an assistant. I was Ryan Carter's right hand, someone he trusted with the most important decisions. The office envied me and I secretly relished the attention. Not that I ever let it get to my head. Ryan Carter was the kind of CEO who walked into a room and had everyone's attention. He was charismatic, always knew the right thing to say, and made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. To me, he was more than just a boss, he was a mentor. He'd take me aside after big meetings, ask for my thoughts, and let me work alongside him on major projects. I was practically his shadow. If you had told me then that the man I trusted above everyone else would betray me, I wouldn't have believed it. My relationship with Jessica, my best friend, was simple. We had been inseparable since college. We both landed jobs at Carter Technologies around the same time. Felt like the perfect fit. We had each other's backs in this competitive world, celebrated our little victories together, and vented about the long hours we'd put in at the office. Jessica was fun, outgoing, and always had a smile for everyone. Everyone loved her too. But it wasn't long before I started to notice little things that set off alarms in my mind. Jessica had always been a bit flirtatious, but when it came to Ryan she seemed different. She started showing up at the office at odd hours, always making excuses for leaving early. There was an energy in the air that didn't sit right with me. But it wasn't until one fateful evening that I began to connect the dots. It was a Friday night, the end of a long week, and I was still finishing up some work at my desk when I saw Ryan and Jessica walking towards the elevator together. They didn't notice me, and at that moment I wouldn't have even thought to look up from my work. Except for the way they were laughing. Too much. Too close. I didn't think much of it at first. Jessica and Ryan were both charming, always social with everyone in the office. But then I overheard something that I couldn't shake off. The faint whisper of a conversation as they passed by the door to the conference room. "Are you sure Emily won't find out?" Jessica's voice was low but unmistakable. "Relax," Ryan said, his voice just as quiet. "She's so focused on her work she won't suspect a thing. I'm good at this. Besides, it's not like it's her fault. She's too good for me anyway." Too good for me? My heart dropped. What were they talking about? Was there something more to their friendship? I tried to dismiss it. After all, I had never seen anything outright inappropriate. But the seed had been planted, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. The following week, I couldn't help but notice how often Jessica and Ryan seemed to run into each other around the office. They'd linger in hallways, share quiet jokes in the corner of the break room, or huddle in Ryan's office, just the two of them. It was subtle, but there was no denying it. Something was going on between them. I tried to confront Jessica once, casually over lunch. Hey, you and Ryan seem to be spending a lot of time together these days, I said, trying to keep the tone light like I was joking. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she forced a smile and replied, "Oh, just work stuff. Nothing to worry about." But I wasn't satisfied. There was more to the story. My gut told me that something was off, and the idea that it might involve Ryan, the man I trusted, the man I thought of as more than just a boss, made me feel sick to my stomach. A few weeks passed and I noticed Ryan seemed more distant. Meetings that used to be full of discussions and collaboration were now cold, brief, and mechanical. The once warm, encouraging atmosphere between us had shifted. Ryan had become aloof. I couldn't understand it. He wasn't his usual self. Then came the breaking point. It was late one Thursday evening. The office was nearly empty. I was working late on a presentation for Ryan, the final version that was due the next morning. I had always been the type to double-check everything, so when I noticed a folder on Ryan's desk that wasn't supposed to be there, I couldn't resist opening it. I had been in his office countless times before, organizing papers, grabbing documents, but this was different. The folder was filled with personal notes, emails, and printouts of messages. But one particular email stood out. The subject line read, "Dinner tonight?" And it was from Jessica. But it wasn't just any casual message. The contents were explicit. "I can't stop thinking about you, Ryan. When you kiss me, it feels like nothing else matters." My hands shook as I read further. Jessica wasn't just having late-night meetings with Ryan. She was having an affair with him. I couldn't breathe. I had to sit down. The betrayal was staggering, but even worse, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been the fool all along. It wasn't just that Ryan was cheating on me. It was that he had been doing it right under my nose. And Jessica, my best friend, had been the one to help him do it. Together they had been lying to me for months. All the time we spent together, the moments I thought were true friendships. All a lie. In that moment my mind went into overdrive. I knew I couldn't confront them right away. I wasn't ready. I had to think this through. I had to make a plan. A plan that would make sure Ryan and Jessica would never forget how it felt to betray me. I spent the next few days walking around in a fog, numb from what I had discovered. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Ryan and Jessica, laughing, sharing secret moments, betraying me. The truth weighed heavily on me, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel furious. How dare they? How dare Ryan, the man I thought I could trust more than anyone, do this to me? And how could Jessica, my closest friend, the one who knew my deepest secrets, stab me in the back like this? I kept replaying the conversation I overheard in my head. "She's too good for me anyway." That part stuck with me the most. Was this all some twisted game to him? Did I really mean nothing to him? The answer, it seemed, was a resounding yes. I couldn't bring myself to confront them yet. I knew the moment I did, everything would change. I had to be smart. I needed to gather evidence, not just for my peace of mind, but to ensure that when the time came, they wouldn't be able to deny the truth. So I started watching, observing, following them both from the shadows. Every day I saw more and more of their private meetings, their whispered conversations, the way their eyes locked in secret. It made my stomach churn, but I told myself it was all part of the plan. The more I knew, the more ammunition I would have when the time came to take action. One day I followed them both to a restaurant after work. I knew they were meeting, but I had no idea just how open they would be about it. As I stood at the bar, nursing a drink to calm my nerves, I could see them through the large windows, seated at a dimly lit booth. Their laughter echoed in my ears as I stared at the two of them, oblivious to my presence. Jessica was leaning in close, her hand resting on Ryan's arm, her fingers tracing his sleeve. Ryan was smiling, that same charming smile he always used on me, his eyes locked on hers like he couldn't look away. I wanted to burst through the door, scream at them, confront them right there, but I stayed still. I had to be patient. I had to let them think they were getting away with it. I couldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. Instead, I made a mental note of everything. Their body language, their whispered words, the way Jessica looked at him. It was all part of the puzzle. But the most painful part? When Ryan pulled Jessica in for a kiss. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I watched him press his lips against hers, completely unaware of the woman who had loved him, and trusted him, with all her heart, standing just yards away. I felt like a ghost, like I didn't even exist to him anymore. That moment pushed me over the edge. I was done pretending like everything was fine. I wasn't going to wait any longer. I wasn't going to let them think they could do this to me, make a fool of me, and walk away without consequences. I was done being the quiet, loyal assistant who always did the right thing. It was time for revenge. I walked out of that restaurant not looking back once. The decision had been made. I knew what I had to do. The next day I showed up to work with a plan. A plan that was as calculated as it was ruthless. I had spent the last few days collecting every little detail, every scrap of evidence, and today I was going to make sure Ryan and Jessica realized the full extent of their betrayal. I knew that confronting Ryan directly would be a mistake. He'd deny everything, try to manipulate me into thinking I was imagining things just like he always did. But I had a different approach in mind. One that would take him down without him even realizing what was happening. It all started with the company emails. Ryan had always prided himself on being a hands-on CEO, constantly communicating with his staff, giving them updates and directives. He had a reputation for being transparent, for making his employees feel included. But what Ryan didn't know was that I had access to his personal inbox. I had been managing some of his communications for months, a task I had been given early on in my role as his assistant. And it was through these emails that I would strike. I started digging. Ryan's inbox was full of emails. Some mundane, some personal, and some incredibly incriminating. As I scrolled through his messages, I came across one that made my blood run cold. It was an email from Jessica, sent just a few days ago, discussing plans to take the relationship to the next level. The email was laced with innuendo, talking about future meetings, how they needed to keep their affair a secret, and even mentioning how Ryan was keeping things quiet with Emily to not make her suspicious. It was perfect. I had everything I needed. I had proof of the affair, proof that Ryan had been lying to me, and proof that Jessica had been in on it the whole time. But I wasn't going to just stop there. Oh, I wanted more. I wanted to expose Ryan for what he truly was. A cheater, a liar, and a man who thought he could get away with anything. So I took it a step further. I knew Ryan was having an important meeting with investors the following morning. The type of meeting that could make or break the future of the company. It was a crucial moment, and Ryan would be presenting his vision for the company's future. But instead of focusing on his pitch, I was going to make sure all eyes were on him for a different reason. I spent the entire night preparing an anonymous email, attaching the incriminating evidence. The messages between Ryan and Jessica, the emails about their secret rendezvous, and a link to the video footage I had secretly recorded of them together at the restaurant. It was time. Time for Ryan's lies to be exposed. Time for him to pay for everything he had done to me. The email was sent right before the meeting began. I sat back watching my phone as the chaos unfolded in the office. The email was sent. I could already hear the ring of the conference room door opening and the sounds of heels clicking across the polished floor. The investors were starting to arrive for the meeting, and Ryan was about to walk right into the storm I had orchestrated. I watched the seconds tick by. Time seemed to stretch and bend, the anticipation building in my chest. What would Ryan's reaction be when the email popped up in his inbox? Would he be able to stay calm, or would the truth hit him like a freight train? I had everything set up, and now it was just a matter of waiting. As the email notifications on my phone began to ping, I knew the storm was about to break. One by one, the investors trickled into the office, probably distracted by the usual pre-meeting chatter. But in just a few minutes that would change. The email I sent had a link to the video footage, the exact footage of Ryan and Jessica's kiss in the restaurant. If that didn't destroy his reputation, nothing would. I had made sure to include a subject line that would draw attention immediately. Carter Technologies CEO, exposed affair and deceit. No one would be able to ignore that, not even Ryan. By the time the meeting started, I had already slipped out of my office and made my way to the break room. I wasn't ready to face Ryan yet. Not until he had been humiliated. Not until he understood the weight of what I had done. I knew the next few hours would be tense, and I needed to be far away from it all. The moments felt like hours. I could imagine the scene unfolding in the conference room. Ryan standing at the front, trying to command the room with his usual confidence, probably unaware of what was waiting for him in his inbox. The investors, people who had trusted him, believed in his vision for the company, would be the first to see the evidence of his betrayal. And then it happened. My phone buzzed. "You've got to be kidding me." It was a message from Jessica. I hadn't spoken to her in days, and I wasn't planning to. But seeing her name light up my screen made my heart race with anticipation. I opened the message and my fingers trembled as I read her frantic text. Emily, what did you do? Ryan just got the email. He's lost it. He's saying you're trying to ruin him. Please just stop. This has gone too far. Her desperation was palpable, but it did nothing to change how I felt. I wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not when I was so close to watching everything crumble for Ryan. I could already imagine the chaos in the conference room. Ryan, completely blindsided, probably trying to explain his way out of the mess he had gotten himself into. It wouldn't be easy. I knew him well enough to know he'd try to manipulate the situation, twist the truth and turn it around on me. But the evidence was irrefutable. His affair with Jessica wasn't just some passing fling. It was a long-term betrayal, one that he'd never be able to explain away. For the next hour I stayed locked in the break room staring at my phone, watching the world around me shift as the fallout from the email began. The investors were furious. I could tell by the tone of the emails flooding my inbox. Some were demanding answers. Others were asking if there was any truth to the allegations. But it was too late. Ryan had already lost his grip on the situation. His carefully cultivated image of the perfect CEO was shattering, piece by piece. Finally the phone rang. It was Ryan. His name flashed on the screen and for a moment I hesitated. What did he want? Was he going to beg? Would he try to make this right? I answered the call holding my breath. Emily, Ryan's voice crackled, sounding strained and panicked. What the hell is going on? You've destroyed everything. I trusted you. You were my right hand. And this is how you repay me. I remained calm even though my heart was pounding. You trusted me, Ryan? You trusted me while you were lying to my face? While you were cheating on me with Jessica? You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought you could keep doing this and get away with it? There was a long pause and I could hear the sound of Ryan's breath quickening. He was losing control and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of power that I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't the quiet assistant anymore. I wasn't the one who had been betrayed. I was the one in charge now. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Ryan said, his voice shaky. But this isn't you. You were my ally. You were supposed to be loyal. Loyal? To you? After everything you did to me? Everything you did to us. I snapped back, my voice steady but sharp. You destroyed any chance of loyalty the moment you decided to betray me. I could hear him stumbling over his words, trying to salvage whatever dignity he had left. You don't understand. I was going to break it off. I was going to end it with Jessica. But you didn't, I said coldly, cutting him off. And you never would have. Don't think I didn't know about all the times you promised Jessica the world, while stringing me along like a fool. You got too comfortable, Ryan. You thought you could get away with anything. But I'm not the naive girl you thought I was. I'm not the assistant you can manipulate. You've lost everything. There was a heavy silence and then Ryan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. This is over, isn't it? It's over for you, I said, hanging up the phone. The damage was done. Ryan's reputation was ruined. The investors were pulling out and the company was left in disarray. As for Jessica, she was no better off. Word spread quickly through the office and soon, everyone knew what she had done. She tried to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but it was too late. She had destroyed not only our friendship but her own career as well. As for me, I walked out of that office with my head held high. I had taken back my power and I had made sure they both paid for their betrayal. Ryan and Jessica were the ones left in the rubble. And I was free. The fallout from the email was swift and brutal. By mid-afternoon, Ryan was a shadow of the man I had once known. The confident, smooth-talking CEO was gone, replaced by a desperate man clinging to the crumbling remnants of his career. Word of his affair with Jessica spread like wildfire, and it didn't take long for the investors to pull out. Meetings that were supposed to secure the future of Carter Technologies quickly turned into angry confrontations, with questions that Ryan had no answers for. Every time he tried to salvage the situation, the truth was there, hanging over him like a dark cloud. The entire office was buzzing with whispers. Everyone knew. Jessica was no longer the charming, confident colleague they once respected. She was the woman who had betrayed not only me but the entire company. Her once promising future had turned to dust, and no one could look at her the same way. She tried to play the victim, calling in sick, avoiding eye contact with anyone, but her reputation was shattered. The worst part was Ryan couldn't escape the truth. He tried. Oh, how he tried. He sent me an email hours after I had exposed him, begging for a chance to explain, to fix things. He offered to meet me in person, claiming he wanted to make everything right. He promised he'd leave Jessica, that it was all a mistake. But I knew better. I knew he wasn't really asking for forgiveness, he was asking for a second chance to manipulate me. To fix his mess so he could continue his game with someone else. I didn't respond to him. Not then, not ever. Instead, I focused on what came next. The outcome of all of this. I had won, but not in the way I thought I would. I thought that seeing Ryan and Jessica suffer would bring me peace. But when the dust settled, I realized it was more complicated than that. Sure, they had lost everything, their jobs, their relationships, their dignity. But I hadn't just destroyed their lives. I had taken something from myself as well. The relief of revenge was fleeting. The truth was, the betrayal had already broken something inside me. No amount of destruction could fix what had been lost. The trust one had in people, in Ryan, in Jessica, in the relationships I had built, was gone. And I couldn't get it back no matter how many people fell from grace around me. Still, I felt empowered. I knew I had done the right thing by exposing them. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. About proving to myself that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't someone who would quietly accept betrayal. It was about standing up for what I deserved. And as I watched the final stages of Ryan's downfall unfold, him being publicly humiliated in front of the remaining board members, struggling to keep his company afloat, I realized that justice had been served. But it hadn't been just for me. It was for anyone who had ever been deceived, anyone who had been manipulated into thinking they weren't enough. Ryan's reputation was irreparably damaged. He'd been the one to make promises and break them, the one who had built an empire on lies. His investors pulled out. His colleagues distanced themselves. The media started picking up on the story, and before long Ryan was everywhere, but not in the way he had hoped. His dirty secrets were out in the open, and no one would ever see him the same way again. Jessica was no better off. Her career crumbled. She was isolated in the office, her name synonymous with betrayal. The friendships she had once relied on turned into hollow nods and quiet whispers. She couldn't hide from the truth. And no apology would ever undo the damage she had caused. I didn't look back. I didn't watch them as they spiraled downward. I didn't need to. The victory I had longed for was not in their misery, but in the peace I was starting to find within myself. I had faced the truth, confronted my fears, and taken control of my life. In the end, the power I had gained wasn't from the revenge itself, but from the strength I discovered in myself. Strength I never knew I had. I had walked through fire and come out the other side, unbroken. And that, more than anything, was the ultimate payback. The journey I went through, the pain, the betrayal, the revenge, was one I would never wish on anyone. But it taught me something invaluable, that my worth was never defined by anyone else's actions. Ryan thought he could break me, Jessica thought she could get away with it, but in the end it wasn't them who triumphed. It was me. When I first discovered their betrayal, I felt like my world was crumbling. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight, couldn't understand how the man I trusted most and the woman I considered my friend could do this to me. But in time I realized that my pain was only temporary. What mattered was how I chose to respond to it. I didn't choose to wallow in sadness or accept the injustice. Instead, I made the conscious decision to take my power back. I used their betrayal as fuel to make them pay for their lies and to remind myself that I was strong enough to rise above it. The revenge I took wasn't about cruelty. It wasn't about ruining their lives out of spite. It was about holding them accountable, about making them face the consequences of their actions. Ryan had used his position to manipulate and deceive, and Jessica had joined him thinking they could play with my heart and my trust. But I showed them that there's a price to be paid when you betray someone's loyalty. In the end, they were left with nothing but the wreckage of their own choices while I walked away free. But as much as I felt a sense of justice, I knew that revenge, no matter how sweet it seems at first, could never heal the deeper wounds. The trust one had in people was shattered, and while I had regained my strength, I couldn't undo the hurt they had caused. But that's life, isn't it? Sometimes, the only way to reclaim yourself is by letting go of what you thought was yours. Trust, relationships, and people, they come and go. But the one thing that no one can take away is your ability to stand tall in the face of adversity. And that's exactly what I did. Looking back now, I realize the greatest revenge was not watching them crumble. It was watching myself heal. I had emerged from this ordeal stronger, wiser, and more determined to never let anyone else have the power to hurt me like that again. It wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. And that, in the end, was the ultimate payback. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, know that you're not alone. Revenge may give you temporary satisfaction, but true strength lies in finding peace within yourself and reclaiming your power. So if you've enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more tales of drama, redemption, and personal growth. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Let's talk about what you would have done in this situation. And remember, you deserve loyalty, love, and respect. Never settle for less.